Hello YouTube, it is your boy GZTV. Holy shit, my microphone just fucked up, but we are here with another video, another movie review, again, kind of continuing our journey through the MCU, and we are here to talk about the 2016 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Captain America, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. Obviously, Marvel got bought out by Disney. We have Captain America Civil War. Another video, another MCU movie, and with Squid Game coming out this Friday, as well as, I don't think Che's coming out anymore, but there's some new music coming out this Friday. I'm not sure how much time we will have to get any more MCU movies in for a while, but we have the whole rest of my life to do these movie reviews. I'm in it for the fucking long haul. I'm just here to announce that I am going to be making YouTube videos for a long time. Met some great people at Summer Smash. Go check out those videos, man. And it really motivated me to keep going, in the movie space, the TV show space, the music space, mainly what I really want to focus on with that, especially my short content. A lot of motivation from those people, and I'm just going to keep going, just kind of provide you guys some content. I think it's been a blast so far. Here we are. It is the Avengers movie disguised as a Captain America movie, and you could even argue more than just the Avengers. I mean, they really went for it here. This was some fucking multiverse porn, an absolute clusterfuck of a film. They trade some characters out for some other ones from the Avengers movie. It's basically Avengers 2.5 is what a lot of people are kind of monitoring it as, and we get into some characters that will be getting their own film soon, but my god, this movie sure was a lot in terms of characters, in terms of the overload of shit. Shout out to Tom Holland, Paul Rudd, and Chadwick Boseman, RIP of course, for making their debuts in our little MCU journey. Let's just kind of get into it. We're going to get into the premise, the good, the bad, the okay, give it a review, give it a rating, all that crap. You know how these videos go. So first, the premise: political pressure mounts to install a system of accountability when the actions of the Avengers lead to collateral damage. Like, this is kind of a trope that has been sort of explored throughout superhero and comic book films. Like, you get into these huge third act fights throughout these movies, and it's going to cause some damage. Like, these buildings are getting knocked down, innocent people are going to die, and I do like how they kind of explored that concept in this film, and they continue to do that, make aware that, yeah, we're causing carnage, there's explosions everywhere. So the new status quo deeply divides members of the team. Of course, Captain America, played by Chris Evans, believes superheroes should remain free to defend humanity without government interference. Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., sharply disagrees and supports oversight. It's like, yeah, maybe we should get watched over because we're knocking buildings down. And we'll get to Captain America in a second because holy fuck, I fucking hate that guy in this movie with a passion. Obviously, as the debate escalates into an all-out feud, Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson, and Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner, must pick a side. There's a lot of free agents, there's a lot of gray area. It's kind of like a political debate. That's why it's a civil war, because they're fighting over this whole thing. Like, do we want the government to get involved? Do we not want it to get involved? I think that's a really cool concept. And again, we'll get into the ins and the outs. We'll get into the X's and the O's, all like the good characters, all the bad characters. Sorry if I ever chop or lag at any point in the video. That's my apologies. It's an interesting concept with some upsides as well as some downsides to it. Again, we'll get into that. Who will win the Civil War? You'll have to watch on to find out. Again, the good, the bad, the okay. Give it a review, give it a rating. I know I'm going kind of fast, but let's go. So getting into the good, first off, I want to say, as always, great fight scenes, and although there can be too many of them, more on that later, sorry my laundry's going on in the background, they were all very compelling. I mean, I was glued to the screen during the action sequences. Great cinematography per usual, mixing in the different effects, practical, special, CGI, all that stuff. Marvel is at an absolute paramount in this era, especially the mid to late 2010s, all the way up until Avengers Endgame. This company, this studio was going crazy with that. As always, it's great. I can respect how the MCU bounces around from director to director as well and still delivers an undeniable product. On paper, let's just get into like the actual film itself. This concept of war between heroes, at least in my experience, hadn't been done before up to that point, and I love this movie for that. I love the risk this movie takes with that whole concept. I think it is a really dope, really interesting experience you go through here. Obviously, the concept wasn't executed in the greatest, most perfect way in the world, but just how it evolved into what it did, to me, was pretty beautiful to watch, I would say. There's some fluff along the way, but this movie, without a doubt, got to a decent conclusion, decent enough. I think I'll just go character by character because there are some characters I love, some I hate, and some I think for the most part were just unnecessary. I think this movie is going to be very much on a character to character basis more than the storyline because it's out there, you know what the movie is, you know the implications, you know what kind of decisions they could go with it. So here we go. Starting off in the good here with characters, of course, I liked, you guessed it, Tony Stark. I mean, Tony Stark is always going to go in the good for me, and especially in this film, I liked him more than ever. Badass, techie guy with a comedic side. It works every single movie he is in. Tony Stark, Iron Man, whatever you want to call him, is easily the best character in the MCU. I don't think there's a debate. I know a lot of people want to say other characters. To me, it's Tony Stark, Iron Man, In this film especially, he has a motivation once the big reveal hits, which I think it was cool that they waited to reveal it in like the last half hour hour of the film. I do think that was a really cool addition, a really cool decision by them to do. I won't spoil the twist, if you will. I mean, I guess I will kind of throw it in a little later on, kind of just subtly talk about it later on, but it definitely makes up for his relationship with characters like Hulk and Thor just not being present in the movie. I think Iron Man, more ways than not, finds a way to really make himself the most compelling character of the entire movie. You root for him in this movie more than you would any other movie he is in, and that is really fucking saying something. Again, a highlight character in this franchise. Also, the introduction of Spider-Man seemed a bit unnecessary at first, but after seeing what movies Tom Holland would be involved in with Marvel, this film was a huge moment for this universe. Again, it just opened the doors for that, and I appreciate this movie for that. Just seeing how him and Tony Stark's relationship begun in this film, and how they both just have the comedic flair with like this great chemistry. It was awesome to kind of see the introduction of that in this movie. He's even hiding a secret from Aunt May, who's unbelievably hot for whatever reason, and of course Tony Stark's gonna make a joke about it, which is awesome, and Iron Man's kind of fucking with him and joking with him over like Aunt May not knowing. Such fun little scenes that we get more of in the Holland trilogy, so you can kind of check out my reviews on those movies for my thoughts on their relationship even further. Obviously those videos aren't as fleshed out, aren't as high effort as some of these like latest, edited videos, but you could still kind of check out my thoughts. A couple of those I actually saw in theaters, so that was a really fun trilogy to watch, especially at the time. Also them like teasing his movies at the end of the film was great, sort of like how they hyped up the Avengers. That's a nifty little detail. It's kind of like a little Easter egg for true Marvel fans to see, oh wow, they did the thing where they say, you will be seeing him in so-and-so whatever time, I think that's really cool. Not as hype as that was, of course, not as high scale because that was hyping up the whole fucking Avengers, but still a fun thing to throw at the end of the film. And I don't have much to say about the Winter Soldier because honestly another character took over as the villain in this movie, so it seemed like the Winter Soldier was only there to fight like so many other characters, which is fine, I guess. There were some decent fighting sequences involving the Winter Soldier, but I'm not going to talk about him much in this video because he served a purpose. Like, he was a vessel, he was like a vehicle to war, but not as big as you would think. Getting into the bad, and you guys might not like me for this, I'm just gonna say it right now, I fucking hated Captain America's guts in this movie. And maybe that's the point, maybe that's what Marvel was trying to do, but I hate them for doing it, because the first two Captain America films, he was the fucking guy, he was amazing, and here, I can't stand him. It was cool when guys like Spider-Man kind of flipped their switch in the Raimi trilogy and went kind of villainous with the black suit for a little bit, but Captain America is the American hero. He is the baby face, like wrestling terms, You cannot make him a villain. Like, it doesn't work. Why the fuck would you turn him into a villain? That's not fitting for his character. I don't like that they did that. What a fucking asshole this guy is in the movie. Holy crap, like, how do you go from fighting with Tony Stark in the Avengers films, fending off bad guys, to then stabbing him in the back and helping a villain who killed his parents? I get he's like a childhood friend, like, oh, Bucky Barnes, the relationship's kind of developing further in this film. I can respect that to an extent, but it's like, my god, that just doesn't make sense for you to do. Anyway, I mean, and there's just way too much fighting in this movie, too. Like, it's very annoying. I was very annoyed. This doesn't seem right that Captain America would do what he did. Yeah, just the fighting in this movie, there's too fucking much of it. There's a lot of filler. And again, like I said earlier, the fighting scenes are compelling. It's a very good movie in that sense, cinematic-wise. But there's a lot of unnecessary fighting. You know what I mean? It's just way too much. I get that they had to bring in Spider-Man and tease the Holland trilogy. I liked that part, of course. But that whole thing where it was team on team seemed a little pointless once we saw that it was basically Iron Man versus Winter Soldier and Captain America in the end. They kind of ditched a lot of the characters later on in the film, and that was weird as fuck. Like, either don't bring those characters in the film at all, or bring them in for the third act. Like, come on, guys. Whatever. Also, like, especially with Black Panther, this is possibly one of the most frustrating characters in the movie. Like, why tease a character like that? Like, he might be joining the fight, trying to kill the man, Winter Soldier, who also killed his father. And there was, like, a common ground between him and Tony Stark, and for him to not even be involved until the end of the film when Captain America came up to him and was talking to him. How does he not beat the fuck out of Steve Rogers for helping the Winter Soldier? Like, that makes no fucking sense. How are we just coming to a resolution? Maybe they explained it, maybe I missed it, but it's like, good god, that made zero sense for them to do that. Oh, whatever, it's all fine, we can be friends, now you help the guy that killed my father, but it's fine, right? No, that doesn't make sense. It's not fine. Now he looks like a puny little bitch because he wasn't even in the fight, and now because they wanted to force the fact that the bad guys win in the movie to an extent, let's have hopeless Iron Man try to take a 2v1 versus practically two godly humans. A fucking hopeless cause. Why did they do this? That's my favorite character. Of course I'm not fine with this. Why did Marvel do this? I know I sound super disoriented, but I fucking am, truly. Like, what they decided to do in this movie with some of the plot points, not it. Getting into the okay though, I just think there are so many unnecessary unnecessary characters in this, and I think that kind of adds to the fighting and the amount of fight scenes there are and the action sequences. I'm not sure how the timeline worked with Ant-Man and when his films came out after this. I'm not sure if they were teasing him as well, but his movies weren't even really that great anyway, and he also felt so out of place in this movie. I'm not really sure what the point of him being in the movie is. I'm not gonna like talk shit on his character, but why was he in the movie? I don't know. I guess they sort of wrote his character to be like this out of place, what am I doing here guy, but it didn't quite work out for me. It was almost kind of cringe as I was watching the movie. Even Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, and the War Machine weren't super necessary here. And I forgot Hawkeye was even in the movie as well. Same with guys like Falcon and Vision. A lot of those characters just get... It's a fucking gnat. I hope I killed it. Sorry if that was ear rape. But like, there's so many characters I forgot was in the movie, and they just completely phased them out of the storyline later on with this whole third act thing. Which is okay, I guess, but it's like, why did you hype up this whole Civil War concept? You have it on the poster, and it only shows up for the second half, and then the third act, boom. It's just the two guys in the front and Winter Soldier. That's it, guys. I mean, that's very strange to me. They could have just had Iron Man and Black Panther, maybe even Spider-Man in there for shits and gigs to hype up his franchise versus Cap and Winter Soldier, and that still would have played on the Civil War concept just fine. That would have been great. I think that would have been way better. And even then again, like where Black Panther was in the third act, I don't fucking know. And because of these unnecessary characters and because of Marvel's growing fetish for multiverse stuff, we get a movie that should not have been 2.5 hours. 2 hours at the absolute most. Should have been 2 fucking hours. Also, you know, they really teased Crossbones being a villain when he was only involved with the first few fight scenes, which is fine, I guess. Like, it's kind of cool to continue him on from the previous Captain America movies, but I don't like when villains come in for the beginning of movies and then they swap them out for another one. That doesn't work for me. That adds to the whole multiverse fetish that the MCU has started to have with these movies, and that's where you start to see the dip in quality in some of these movies. It doesn't really make sense for me. It doesn't work. And one last thing that seems a bit nitpicky, this is very minor. Why would Steve get romantically involved with the niece of a woman that he still loves right after she dies? That seems like fucking incest. I could hate him even more for that in this specific film. I mean, I'll kind of leave it out, but like, the things in this section obviously don't ruin the movie, but they're good things to note as iffy elements. Good things to note on stuff I'm kind of shaky on. So that's kind of my section there. So getting into the review, pull up that tier list, baby. I do think this movie is better than the Age of Ultron, but not by much. And the Avengers Age of Ultron isn't really a huge bar, and especially when they're really going for this Avengers 2.5, I don't think they really executed that as well as they could have. I remember liking this movie way more back when I was a kid, and I still like it. I still think it's a fine movie in the MCU, but it is not top tier. It's probably the worst Captain America movie we've gotten so far, and that sucks, you know, because we could have had a perfect trilogy, and they didn't quite hit that with this. I think it was just the excitement of adding all these characters into the universe that really gets kids riled up on this, which I get is cool, don't get me wrong, for certain audiences, but now that I'm older and I've been watching these movies and studying how franchises sort of progress, I just see this whole section, at least the last 2 films in the timeline, as a money grab, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I like the moral dilemmas that they go through throughout this movie, which I kind of forgot to touch on in the review because, my god, there's a cricket. There's so much to talk about with this movie because it's so fucking bulky. That's cool, like the moral dilemmas and stuff, like the 2 sides of the war are really cool, I understand that, but overall this movie, for what it is hyped up to be, is just satisfactory to me, and that is why I'm going to give it a rating of a 7.7 out of 10. It does a fine job as an MCU movie, but there are plenty of Captain America movies, there are plenty of other MCU movies, yeah, the 2 other Captain America movies, and there's plenty of other MCU movies that I would rather revisit than this one if I want a good film. So with that being said, I'm out. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know it is New Music Friday. The crickets are booing me out of here, but you know it's New Music Friday. Ian dropped a single. Shay actually delayed his record until July, so we'll have to wait on that. We'll have to think of something else to react to, but a lot of dope content coming to the channel. It's still like very start of summer, so it's awesome.